Hello and welcome. My name is Trey Wells. I'm a front-end developer from Minnesota. Welcome to my first video on YouTube and welcome to the first video in a series where I'm going to be finding designs on the internet and converting them into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript real time. Now, I'm creating this series because it's really important to understand if you're an aspiring or new front-end developer, one of your primary skills has to be the ability to take a static design and convert it into interactive HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's very rare. It actually never happens where you're on the job and you get to kind of design and code whatever you want. There's always some design that you have to either base it off of, or you have to get this design from the design team or the marketing team and be able to transform that into something real. So hopefully this series is beneficial for someone on the newer end of the spectrum. Because it's something that I wish I had when I was starting out. Like most other new developers, I just kind of Googled how do I get started coding, and I kind of picked my front end or back end stack, and I kind of went from there. But I never actually understood how hard or important it was to take an existing design or design from a designer and be able to convert that. That is something that's pretty hard to do, and I just want to make sure that you have a resource you can go to and to watch how they do it in real time. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump over to the browser. So we're going to be taking designs from two websites in particular. The first one is UI Design Daily. This is maintained by somebody named Adiko Gaspar, I believe the name is. I've had this site bookmarked forever. It's a great inspiration. It's a great place to go if you need design ideas, but it's also a good place to go if you want to practice taking smaller designs and converting them into interactive code, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to see these designs and not get overwhelmed. You're not building entire websites. You're not building crazy amounts of functionality. A lot of these things are just small components, and these really build good skills, right? A lot of these components that we see here are used in the real world. Modals, buttons, like search filters. Some of them might be hard, but a lot of these are really easy. It's really a good time to practice these skills. The second video or the second URL that we're going to be taking designs from is Front End Mentor. I'm sure you've heard of it, but if not, it's a place you can go and sign up, and they will actually have these challenges, and these challenges are full designs, right? You can click on, let me see, let's try this for example. Like, so this challenge is to build this design, and the cool thing about this is, like, once you submit it, you can actually compare what you came up with to the actual design that was given to you. The other cool thing is that a lot of these will actually have some requirements, right? So you should be able to see the hover and focus states for all elements on the page, right? Let me go find a more difficult one. This is more fleshed out. Some more fleshed out stuff here. What's this one say? So like the brief, right? They should be able to add an email, submit the form, see a success message. Like, this is really realistic, right? Because oftentimes when you're getting designs, like, these certain things need to be in the interactive thing you come up with, right? So Front End Mentor is a great place to go. I do plan on doing these also in this series, but I'm going to start off with a UI Design Daily one. All right, so for today's video, I've actually already picked out a component that we're going to use. And let me actually just filter by Figma RDM. And it is a simple grocery to-do list design. Now, say what you want about to-do lists, but they're really good for beginning developers because they kind of force you to think about DOM manipulation, how to keep styles consistent, and very oftentimes, like the checkboxes that we see here, that's not a regular default browser checkbox, right? They're almost always custom, and they're not always simple to make, right? So I know there's a lot of like negative talk about to-do lists. I think they're a great challenge. I think they're totally fine. The problem with to-do lists is that you don't want to be doing these things throughout your whole career, right? Because there are other things that are more challenging and kind of prove more skills than a simple to-do list. So with that intro out of the way, I've already downloaded the Figma design file. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up here. As we can see, if you do use Figma, a cool shortcut that I use often to see designs in full is command, I think it's / actually. And that way that kind of gets rid of all of the windows in Figma, so you can solely focus on the design, right? The one downside that you can't see like the details, right? I don't know what font this is from this screen, right? I have to go to Command / again and then do it that way. But anyway, a quick shortcut. Super cool to be able to keen in on the design and really focus on the task at hand here. So now for this part, I'm actually going to just take off my video, my face from the screen, so we can focus on the code, but I'll be talking this whole time. So here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and minimize Figma for now. And as you can see here, I have my to-do list folder here. And I just have one folder, one file inside, index.html. Now I'm just assuming that if you're watching this video, you're not totally new. You know how index.html file works. You kind of know how to structure a basic page. You should know how to like link style sheets, that kind of stuff. So if you don't, I'm gonna do it right now. But again, this is not aimed at a day one designer or a developer, sorry. All right, so on VS Code, I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut, exclamation point, go ahead and click tab. Now, one thing I like to do with my titles, what I'm going to do for the series is to kind of name them. One thing I did not show, actually, let me go back to the Figma design file. So Adelco, I think her name is, she actually names her designs by the day. So I'm actually just going to use that in my title. So I'm going to name this day 1543 to-do list. Day 1543. Oops, sorry, my cord's getting in the way here. Oops. 1543 to, holy smokes, to-do list. All right. All right. And then I also have my live server running over here. Again, if you don't have this extension installed, it might actually become default, but I'm not sure. If you don't have it, I highly recommend going to get it. Let me just click this run button so we can see it. And now anything that I type here should run and auto refresh. Hello YouTube, and click save, and we can see hello YouTube. All right. Okay. So when looking at designs, let me bring this up again. I try to think about this stuff in context, right? So I mean, obviously this grocery like to-do list card is not an entire website, right? But the way my mind works is I see this card and I see it used in more than one spot. And this is important to ask for challenges like this, because even though it's just one component on a page, it kind of helps to think about these things in context, right? How would this be used alongside other cards, right? How would it be used alongside an actual page with content in it? And the reason why I ask that is because this is a header and it's the only header on the page, so it should probably be in H1, but it's important to note that in the real world, this will not be in H1. This will probably be like an H3 or an H4, because it's probably going to be a component. There should be another H1 or H2 on the page. Anyways, all these things are important to think about as a new developer, because they come into play when you start building something more than just a simple component, okay? Just something to keep in mind there. So another thing I like doing is to build out all my markup first and then add the CSS and JavaScript on second. There's no hard rule about that. That's just kind of personal preference. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and get started with a card. And then inside this card, I'm going to have a title, which will hold the title, obviously, right? It's going to hold the groceries. I'm actually going to, let me change this actually from a div to a header. So header, card, title, because this section is like the header of this component. Now you can have more than one header on a page. That's something that people think you can't have for some reason, but you can put the header inside of any other block level element that just makes sense in context. Okay, so inside this header, I'm gonna go ahead and do my H1. Again, keep in mind this probably won't be an H1 if this was built in a real website, but for the sake of this demonstration, I'm gonna make it an H1. Groceries, and I can already tell that this looks a little bit different, right? That share with one person text. So I'm gonna give us a class of hint dash text, and it's gonna be shared with. And now we have a link inside of here. So of course, if you didn't know, VS Code has Emmet built in. So if you type in A and click tab, it'll actually auto-complete an anchor tag for you. I want to give this a blank hashtag for now, and then do one person. Okay. All right, now we have this button over here, which is some kind of menu or more button. So I'm gonna give this a button. I'm gonna give it a class of more. All right, I'm gonna come back to the button later. Let me see, add icon. I'm gonna add icons later on. I have a cool spot to show you where you can get some kind of cool icons from. Okay, so we got that in here. Let's go ahead and go to the tasks part. So outside the header, or whoops, no, the button should actually be inside the header. I don't know why I did that. Card tasks. All right, okay. I'm gonna do a UL. It's actually gonna have a, so I'm thinking in my mind that this is going to be, at some point, JavaScript needs to interact with these elements. So I'm going to give this, typically you might give us like an ID. I tend to prefer the data attribute because I like saving IDs for accessibility stuff, or really any other thing that has to have an ID on it. And I don't want to muddy up the ID escape without something that's super important. So I'm going to do data.id. This is going to be uncompleted task list. Inside of here, I'm going to have a few things. I'm going to have, of course, list item because that's required in ULs. But and each one of these is going to be a label. And now in this case, I'm not going to put a for. I'm actually just going to wrap the input inside the label. But I want to show you can do this both ways. It's going to be a checkbox, and the text is going to be eggs, right? Now, you can also do this the other way. You can do label, give it a for, like you can do like eggs, right? And then eggs, and then you can have an input checkbox, and this can have an ID of eggs, right? Let's go to the browser really quick to show you this. So notice how these are both the same, right? If I click on eggs here, oh, the typo here. What am I doing? So notice how, let me do one at a time. Let me count this. So now we have the label and input strategy. If I click on eggs, that checkbox should be checked, which is one, good for UX, also good for accessibility. But the other way of doing that is wrapping the input with the label, because if you do that, you don't have to have the for and the ID. And specifically for checkboxes, I like doing it this way because I just find it makes more sense for me to read, right? Because we're gonna have multiple of these checkboxes. So again, some stuff is personal preference. Probably there might be a design system in place where they have a certain structure of doing things, but I like to do the inputs inside of the label for checkboxes. So that being said, let's go back to the design and keep on going here. We have tomatoes, and that little shortcut I did there was shift command and then down on the keyboard will actually create one. You can click up to, it'll create one above. So again, super quick shortcut, which I recommend. Tomatoes, avocado. Okay. Let's see here. All right, I think it's pretty good now. Now let's go to the completed task now. And for this, I'm just going to do another div. Let's see here. Card task. Let me make sure I'm in the right spot here. Sorry. Card. Let's see here. Completed task. UL. I'm going to do the same thing for here. I'm going to give it a data.id equals completed tasks. And here I'm going to do something very similar, actually. In fact, I'm just going to copy one of these. Now to move stuff, you can hold command and do up and down and kind of move the whole thing to a new line. So again, another super cool shortcut that I like. Egg noodles. I'm going to do the same shortcut as before. Let me see, scampi. Yeah, I love shrimp scampi. What else I got here? Orange juice. And then apples. Now these, I want these all to be checked by default because in the design they're checked, right? So let's make sure these are all checked. Let's just check the browser really quick. Now we should see, let's refresh, right? So there we go. These top ones and these bottom ones are the completed ones. And notice how because I have this checked attribute, they're already checked. So super nice. All right, let's go back here. And then I need one more button here. So I'm gonna do button. I'm gonna call this card CTA. And I'm gonna again add CTA icons. I'll do that again later on. Now, as you can see here, I actually like the BEM naming convention. I know that it's kind of falling out of favor lately, especially with CSS nesting. But I like this way of naming CSS because it kind of keeps me organized. And even though I do tend to use CSS nesting, it's just a really easy way to know kind of what's what, right? And it also applies to components, right? If you have a card component, it might help you to understand that card title has to be in the card component, right? Card task must be in the card task, right? So this is stuff I think about as I'm building stuff. Let's actually be tasks actually, because there's more than one here. All right, so now let me show you where I go to get icons. And let's go ahead and start with, before I forget, I want to go back to UI Design Daily. And I want to go back to that design, and I want to make sure that I put the link for the source of the design in my code file. So just in case someone wants to come look at this, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put it just right below the head. That's fine. I'm going to paste this. I'm going to make it a comment. Now I should be able to click on this thing and go right to that design, right? Beautiful. Okay, so where I tend to go to get icons from is this website called, I don't know how to pronounce this, Lucid. And I know I need some kind of menu. Let me type in menu, see if they have one, and they sure do. More horizontal. I'm just gonna copy the SVG out of here, and just pop that right into where it says add icon. Okay, and then the other one I need is what? This plus sign, right? So let me see if they have, is it plus or add plus? Look at that. Copy SVG. Now let's add that to the one on the bottom. Let's go ahead and check this out in the browser. It's gonna look horrible because I haven't put any design into it or any styles into it, but I think structurally we're in a good spot. What did I do wrong here? SVG save. What did I do wrong here? Copy SVG. Oh, I know, because it only has one T in it. T. That wasn't even an issue. Delete this. SVG. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that. Here we go. And there we go. All right, so not the prettiest thing. Oh, you know what? What am I doing? These should all be wrapped in the list item. Okay, really important that you don't forget that. LI, again, I'm gonna use an MS shortcut here, and I'm gonna create 3 of these. You can do LI times 3 and then click tab, and super cool, just like that. It'll just create 3 different ones. I'm gonna open these up here, and I'm gonna move these labels just to be in there. Okay, there we go. This looks much more, I messed up here too. What am I doing? Make this my first YouTube video. I'm nervous. Let's go. Let's separate these. I thought that looked weird. There we go. That's what it should look like. There we go. Got my intro, got my header, got my button that don't do anything. I got my check boxes, right, which is kind of nice. All right. So now let's go ahead and create a styles.css. And then I always forget. Let's go ahead and link this thing. Styles.css. What I like to do is make sure it works as body, background color, fire brick, and now we know it works, right? Wonderful. The other thing I typically do in basically almost all my projects is to add a CSS reset. Now, there's a handful of them out there. One that I like the most is by someone named Josh Kumo, I think his name is. Josh Kumo, CSS reset. He has a really good one. My custom CSS reset. All right. The cool thing about his reset is that it's really simple and really short. One thing I do wish though was it was like a copy all button. So I'm just gonna go here. I'm gonna take this reset and I'm just gonna pop this into here. and then click save. That was one thing that I do always remove from History Chat that I'm not gonna use in this project, and that's the last thing, this root and this next. I'm not using Next.js. So I'm just gonna remove this whole block here and go ahead and click save. Okay. So for this design, I'm gonna take advantage of CSS custom properties. So I'm gonna go ahead and map some of these base styles to CSS properties so that we don't have to constantly go back and forth and check in the browser like what design definitions are. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. It's just root. And now in here we can define as many custom variables as we want. So let's start with some colors. And I'm gonna have a color primary, primary dark. And let's go see what this is. If I click on this, so this is the hashtag, beautiful. Here, so this is the hex code. I'm gonna click save. I'm gonna do that same trick here, shift option down in the arrow key on the keyboard. I'm just gonna have a medium, and I know I'm gonna have a light as well. So let's go find those values. Let's see here. I think this one is medium. Yeah, let's go ahead and copy this. I gotta make sure I got one hashtag in there, and then light. Let's see here. Maybe there isn't a light. Maybe there is no light. Okay, easy enough. All right, what else do we have here? We can see we have like a white color here. So I typically do save white as a CSS custom property, even though it's so common you might not even need to. So I'm gonna do base white hashtag FFFFF. Okay, let's see here. Let's look at the font family. So like again, this is also a personal preference, but I tend to prefix my custom properties with the style of variable it is, right? So for like font weight, I'll do FW. For font size, I'll do FS. For font family, I'll do FF. So for this case, I'm gonna do font family header. Just for anomaly, that blank, I'm not sure what that is yet. And I'm gonna do font family body, the same thing. I'm gonna keep this blank for now. Let's find out what this is. This is Merriweather. So let's go ahead and go to Google Fonts. Let's get those fonts here. Google Fonts. Let's look this up. Merriweather. I'm gonna get the font. Let's see here. Get the embed code. Let's go back and find out. This is the black. Wait, what's the other font family? Poppins Medium. These all medium. What's this? Poppins Medium. Poppins Medium. Okay. So for this one, we needed really any of them except for black. And then we also needed Poppins, right? Poppins. Get font, same thing. I feel like Google Fonts has gotten more complicated to use over time. Let's see here, medium. Okay, let's see here. Let's see if I can right. Okay. And again, in a real project, I probably wouldn't use this import. I'd probably just use a normal link, or if using Next.js, you can actually just use Google Fonts right in your project without having to make any third-party request API call, which is nice. But again, to keep this simple, I'm just going to use this import here. So let me go ahead and copy this, and this should just load in the fonts right into the project. I'm going to go ahead and click save. I feel like VS Code did not used to yell at you when you forgot a semicolon back in the day, but now if you leave it out, it really does not like that. So I can say that, and now I know my header will be Merriweather, and the fallback will be serif, and then Poppins, and the fallback will be sans serif. Okay. Another thing that I will typically do is let's do font family, and then typically at the bottom of the list there's like a systems font declaration here. This one here. Typically what I'll do is copy this and actually make this the fallback, because if you can't, for some reason, if your computer has an issue getting these Google fonts, then you should just use whatever font is on your system, right? So again, it's another good trick that I tend to use for most of my projects. Okay, so let's go back to our design file here. All right, their thing I'm looking at is the font sizes. Right here I see a 36, here I see a 16, and I see a 20. What's this, 16? Okay, so I do know I'm gonna need font size. So again, the way you name these things is, it's a wild west. It's not really a right answer here, but for the sake of this demo, I'm just gonna do large, medium, and small because we only have 3. Large, and what will this be, right? So this is interesting because I tend to keep my font size, I tend to keep my root font size the default, so 1 rem, so it'll be 16 pixel. Now in this case, because I know I want this header to be 36 pixels, one thing you could do here is do calc, and you can do 36 divided by 16 times 1 rem, and that will actually give you 36 pixels, but in rem, right? In rems, right? So let me just open up a calculator quick and show you what happens here. So I want this value to be a rem value. I do not want to write 36 pixels here because I want this value to scale based on the user's font size setting that they put in the browser, right? So it's really important to keep that. You probably also see the trick of putting your font size at 62.5%. That just makes it easy to do the math, right? So if you have like 24 pixels, that's just 2.4 rem. But that kind of makes the math easy. But in this case, because I don't want to do that here, I like keeping the default 1 rem at 16 pixels. Another way to do that is to just do 36 divided by 16. And so this is 2.25 rems. Now, without putting that times 1 rem, it'll just be 2.25, which would be an invalid CSS selector for font size. So you need to times that by 1 rem, right? So this will give you 2.25 rem. Now, I use this quite often. I don't overuse the calc. I heard there could be performance implications. I'm not really sure about that, but I like calc for converting pixels to rems. I think that is a perfect use case for calc. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep moving on to the other ones. The other ones, this is, I think medium is was 20. Whoops, 3000. Let's find the other one, 16. Okay. Now, if you're using a preprocessor or something like that, actually, let me see, 16, this will be 1 rem. Small. Now, 16 divided by 16 is obviously 1 times 1 rem is going to be 1 rem. So I'm just going to put 1 rem here for this one. Okay. All right. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So there's probably a better way to actually reuse this, right? This can probably be like, so native CSS, you can't use mixins, but if you're using a preprocessor like SCSS, SASS, less, you can probably create a reusable function or a mixin that will actually do this for you instead of writing calc desired value divided by the rem times 1 rem, right? There's probably a better way to do this, but I don't think it's a big deal for the scope of this project. Okay. I'm also saying there's actually a box shadow here, so I'm just going to create a variable for that too. So I'm going to do box shadow, and I'm going to make this. Now, this is going to be kind of complicated because it's the same thing, right? I need all of these values to actually be rem and not pixels, right? Because again, I want to respect the user's browser settings. So it's going to be 0 because we know it's 0, and for the y, it's at 15. So here we go. I'm going to do calc again. 15 divided by 16 times 1 rem, and then the same thing for the blur. Calc 41 divided by 16 times 1 rem. Okay, and then lastly is the spread. Calc 3 divided by 16 times 1 rem, right? And now for this color here, I'm actually just going to calc this. Maybe this will be my light. Color primary light. I take that back. What I'm going to do is, because I know this is like 30% opaque here. I'm gonna delete this, and I'm gonna add that hex value here and kind of use VS Code as helper to kind of approximate, bring this down to like 30% or so. Okay, so this will give me that semi see-through color. Yeah, if you didn't know, there's an 8-digit hex value. Those last two numbers are the alpha channel, which make it either fully opaque or fully transparent. So super cool thing there. All right, I think that's it for now. Let's go ahead and start styling the rest of this stuff. I think we might have might be a good place to get this started. So let me go ahead and make sure this stuff is saved here, okay. So one thing I'm going to do right away is to update the body so that it makes sure that card's in the middle. Again, this is not realistic for a real project, but given that we're building a component in isolation, so I'll make sure that thing is in the middle, just like the design has, right? See how it's nice and focused in the middle? We want that same thing in our what I'm gonna call a prototype. So I'm gonna do body, I'm gonna do the min height of 100 viewport heights. I'm also gonna do a display of grid. I'm also going to do place content center. This is a nice little shortcut for making sure that all of the content items in the body that are a grid child are right in the middle. You can see didn't have to do much. It just showed up in the middle, right? Which is super nice. I like that a lot. And then the font family is going to be that var font family body. If I save it, that should instantly change. That kind of proves that it's working. Beautiful. We should just have a pop into font. And then I also want the background color of this to be, let's go find out what that value is actually. It's EFF2FF. So how about I make that my light variable? EFF2FF. I'm going to save that. And then this is going to be, you can just start typing it. It'll actually auto put it in for you. Oh, I didn't, where's my, oh, I have two mediums. If I save that now, it should give me some nice autocomplete. Light, there we go, beautiful. You can see this thing is light now. All right, we'd love to see it. I'm actually gonna make, the next thing I'm gonna do is, let me actually open this up side by side so we can see them. My HTML and my CSS. So because I know this button is going to be positioned absolutely, I'm gonna make this header relative. So header position relative. Okay. I'm just gonna do some styles for all the buttons because right now, if you take a look at it, we can see this cursor is not like a pointer, and I want that to be a pointer, not the cursor. So I'm gonna do button. I'm gonna do cursor. Okay, so it's so common. That's the number one thing. Go ahead and hit save. We can see this turns to a cursor now, which is beautiful. And let's see here. I also want to change the active and the focus and the hover styles of basically everything on here to make this match the design. So I'm gonna take advantage of some CSS nesting here, which I think is one of the best things that CSS has brought to light now. One of the main reasons why I use SCSS and Sass is because of the nesting. It's just so nice. But you can do that now with CSS, which is super nice. So to do that, I'm just gonna do and focus. I'm also gonna do and hover, and I'm gonna make the outline. What do I want to make this? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add that as a custom property as well. I'm going to go ahead and do, I'll do focus and hover styles. And what do I want to do here? I think I want to do 2 pixels solid. And let's do color medium for this one. And then for active, let's make that a little bit darker. So it'll be active. Styles are going to be 2 pixels solid color dark. All right. So let's go ahead and go to that button now. The outline is going to be, see, this is what I love custom properties. It's so nice to be able to just save that stuff. And then I'm also going to add an active style here. Outline is going to be There you go, style. Let's make sure this works. Let's go back to the browser. These tab. We can see how it seems like that new thing now. I love it. All right, of course we're gonna do the inputs. We're gonna do all this stuff. All right. Okay, let's take care of the rest of our styles here. All right, so I'm gonna select all of these. Let's fix these headers up. Again, even though this is only a single component in isolation, I'm gonna kind of style it as if there was more headers involved, right? So I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna do font family equal to font family header, and this should change if I did this right. Beautiful. And then I want the color to be dark. Whoops. Color primary dark. Okay. We're getting there, y'all. We're getting there. Now I'm gonna make that font size. Font size large. Okay. Slowly getting there. Let's see here. Also this paragraph, and there's also the labels for all of our individual items. So I'm gonna do P and label. And this is gonna be colored dark as well. And then the font size is gonna be that font size medium that we found out earlier, right? So font size medium is at 20 pixels. This is pretty well this actually works. Let me font. This needs to be font size 20. Okay. So we can kind of see this work. Let's kind of prove this out, right? If I inspect here, like this font size should be 20. If I go to label, if I click on this thing, let me go to label. We can see it, the font size coming through is font size medium, but let's go to the computed value, which is what we're looking for. Font size 20. You see that? This kind of proves that our calculation that we did earlier does actually work. We can do that same thing for the header as well. Font size 36. And we can see that we had 36 in there. If we change this to 46, let's do F3 for it. Let's make it fun, right? We see it's gigantic. Let me re-inspect. Font size 346, right? So that's pretty cool. All right, let me save. Okay. For now, I'm going to close off this inspector just to give us some more space. I'm going to close our tabs out too behind. Alrighty. What we have to do next here? Let's take care of the anchor link, and let's tidy up these on our list and list items. So let's go ahead and go down here. Let's select the anchor tags here. Keep my consistency. That's my spacing. I'm gonna do color. I'm gonna do color inherit here. Instead of setting a color for the link to be that same medium, I'm just gonna do inherit. Because this link is a child of paragraph tag, I think that paragraph tag should be the same color as. Let's save, and there we go. So again, another keyword I use a lot is that inherit. It's super cool. CSS. I'm gonna do focus here. I'm gonna take advantage of some CSS nesting again. Outline is gonna be the same thing here. So focus and hover styles. There we go. Now it's got to take care of the other stuff here. All right. So you might have asked, why did I not put this padding inside of like inside of our reset? And it's because sometimes I do want padding on our list. So I always opt to take the padding off afterwards, because sometimes I do want on our list to have the default browser padding on it. So just something to keep in mind there, because I happen to tell this too all the time is, typically these resets, they give you a lot of the stuff that kind of make the browsers work the same. And one of those things is padding. But it's probably super common for everyone to just go ahead and take off their padding from their on our list. I do it a lot too, but sometimes I don't do that. I don't want to get into a habit of always taking it off and have to re-add it later. So kind of two sides of the same coin, but this is what I've kind of come to. All right, let's take our list items really quick here. Let's do list style. Let's take off those bullets. List style none. And for this one, what I want to do is I want all of them to have some margin top, except for the first one. And let me go back to design here. Let me zoom in here. This frame, you can see there's 25 pixels of space between each item. No, I don't want to give the first one that margin because I don't want it to bump that much farther down from the on our list. So kind of a cool way you can do take advantage of CSS nesting is to kind of do a not selector here. You can do and not first child. And if I do margin top here of, I'm gonna use my same calc trick I've been doing, calc 16 times 1 rem. If I save that, we should see that like all of these have margin out except for the first child and their respective parent, right? So that's pretty cool. I like that a lot actually. And one thing they say don't have here that I'm missing is this completed. So let's go ahead and add that in. I'm trying to think where's the best spot to actually add this thing in. Oops, sorry. Let me do small here. I'm just gonna make this a small thing. I'm gonna do completed. And then I'm gonna do 4. Again, in the real world, this would probably have like a span or something around it. Because this will need, in fact, let's do it here. Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's go span. And I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna do data that num completed equals, actually no, let's take it back. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna give it a class, num completed. Let's go ahead and pop that 4 in here. Okay. But it's in the wrong spot. This needs to be between these, right? There we go. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and style that thing up then. Small. I'm gonna make it color dark. Let's bring up our browser. We'll do text transform uppercase. And kind of a quick tip, typically when you uppercase text, it tends to look better with letter spacing. So in this case, I'm just going to add like a pixel or 2 of letter spacing. Let's add 2 pixels. Let's see. That's probably too much. Add 1. All right. Okay. So I'm going to do 1 pixel. Very often, if you don't do that, it just looks weird, right? There's something about it that looks weird if you don't give all caps text some letter spacing. So I'm gonna try to learn from a designer named Eric Kennedy. Really good designer, really popular, but it's a really good trick that I use all the time. All right, I'm gonna make this display block. I need to give this a margin. Display block here, and I'm gonna give it margin bottom of 1 rem. Okay. All right. Let's go to the fun part now, right? Let's style up these list items to look like the actual design. What I'm gonna do is take a look at our HTML. I'm probably gonna give these labels a display of flex so I can really center the input in the egg, or like the text node. So I'm gonna do label display subgrid, display flex. I'm also going to do a gap of 0.5 rem, which should be 8 pixels. Now let's take a look at this quick here. If I inspect this, you can see how it's 8 pixels. So she must have used the 8-point grid system. So 0.5 rem is 8 pixels, right? So because 1 is 16, so super nice. And the same thing, this should actually be cursor pointer, and let's see here. That should be good. Let's stay here. Okay, let's keep going. Let's work on these inputs. Let's go input. I'm gonna do type equals checkbox. Okay. So this is kind of tricky, right? What I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna make these checks are gonna be an absolutely positioned background SVG image. It's actually surprisingly tricky to update the styles of of elements that are inside of a before or after pseudo element, which is kind of interesting. So, but I do know they're going to be absolutely positioned, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Position relative, because I want those to be positioned absolutely to this check to each individual checkboxes. I'm also going to do appearance none, which is going to take off all of the default browser styling, right? So we can see we have no checkboxes now at all. And then we're going to make them ourselves, right? So we do know they're circles. So we could go ahead and start with a border of 1 pixel solid. And let's do primary dark for now. And save. And then let's do a height of, let's see how tall they are. 39. Let's do 40. Calc 40. I'm gonna do the same trick. 40 divided by 16 times 1 rem. All right, that should actually give us it didn't give it a width. So instead of adding a width here, I'm just gonna use something called aspect ratio, which I'm gonna give this a 1, which should make that a square, and we should see something. Why don't we see anything there? Oh, because I didn't do this right. Var. All right, beautiful. Now we see a square, right? That's kind of cool. And you can't tell, but the checked actually does still work. But because I did appearance none, that checked just, there's no styles to show what the checked state looks like. So we're gonna fix that. Let's make the circle. Let's do border radius 50%. There we go. These are now circled, right? So that's kind of cool. Okay, let's see here. Let's do the focus and the hover state of these. Again, I want them all to have the same consistent style. 2 pixel. This is active or focus and hover styles, right? Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Love to see it. All right, so now let's tackle the checked part. So and checked, right? So this will let us style the checked state of the individual inputs. So I'm going to create a pseudo element here, and I was going to do it before, but we could do it after as well. I'll do it before. And when you create a pseudo element, you always want to give it an empty content, right? This gives it some space to have styles in it. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna go to that website that I talked about before, this Lucide, and let's search for a checkbox. But in this case, I actually want the data URL, because this is like the best way that I have found to put SVG icons inside of a background image for pseudo elements, right? This is kind of tricky actually, and this is like not super simple, but it's something that I have found that works for me in most cases. So that being said, let me just go ahead and position this correctly. So position absolute. I'm gonna do height and width 100% because again, I want this to take up the full width of the input. And then I'm just gonna do background image and show you what happens. Background image URL. I'm gonna paste what I just copied from that website. This data image. Let me save this so we can see we're already seeing checkboxes in here. Background repeat is repeat by default, which I think is kind of strange, but so let's take that off. Background repeat, no repeat, right? So that should do something. And I'll also do background position center, and that should give us pretty close to what we want. Or background position center. That should get us pretty close to what we want. Beautiful. Now we can check these checkboxes and we can see that we have our own custom icon coming in there, which I think is pretty cool. And this alone could be like its own video, because this is like it's not as simple as you might think, right? I can't come in here and just change the color of this because it's like an embedded background image. So I can't do color and fill on this. So you gotta kind of you gotta kind of decide what you need from it and kind of make your decisions based off of that. Okay, let's see here. What else we got? One thing I am noticing, and let's check the design. So all of these elements have like a nice little gap in them. What I'm gonna do is, again, something I use on a handful of projects before, is I use like this class called Flow, and what it's gonna do is all of its children's siblings are gonna have margin So I'll show you that doesn't practice, but I'll kind of talk you through this. So any class that has flow, all of its like direct descendants, siblings are gonna have this margin. They're gonna have margin. Margin top of, let's do 2 rem, which would be 32 pixels. And let me add that class to card. If I save this, we'll have it. All right, we can see that all gets kind of spaced out, right? So let's inspect this and show you what's going on here. All right. So this card flow class, right? Let me bring those up. So like this is the direct child of flow. So like the next one should have the margin top, right? Because again, look at our style sheet. It's flow. It's the direct child, and then its sibling, right? So this ensures that you kind of have like a nice consistent spacing between elements as long as they share a parent that has a class you created. Again, this could also be a whole nother video by itself, but this is a super cool and super unique way of having consistent spacing through all of your elements, right? So you can scroll down, all of these should have that same margin top, right? So I think that's super cool too. Look at that. Okay. So let's go ahead and close this off again and go back to our design. I use it all the time. You might have heard it called like a lobotomized owl, which I think is kind of cool, but either way, it's a good way to make sure that your spacing is consistent. And I'm actually going to try to use some logical properties here. So instead of margin top, I'm actually going to do margin block start, which is the same thing as margin top in this case. Margin block start. I think the other one's like, you can use, I think padding is it too, so padding block start. Or padding inline. Depending on what language you're in, depending on your reading mode, it's either left or right to left. So, like in this case, because we are reading left to right in English language, like block start will be the top and bottom, which is super nice. So I'm actually going to change that other thing I did here. So margin block end for margin bottom. Is that it? Here, margin block start. Again, I highly recommend you just if you don't use these modern CSS features, I highly recommend just slowly adding them to your workflow. It's super nice. All right, let's update this hint text here. Do we get that? I did get that. Okay, hint text. Let's do color. This is gonna be medium, color medium. And then font size is going to be font size small. I keep doing font there. It's going to be font size small, right? Let's see here. Perfect. Okay. So let's go ahead and style this more button here. More. Oh, again, remember I said it's going to be positioned absolute. And then it's going to be a right of 0. Because remember, we have this header positioned relative for this reason. So this is exactly what we want. We basically want top of, let's go 1 rem and try this out. Let's see. Maybe we want 1.25 rem maybe. Because we're actually gonna take, here, let's wait on positioning it vertically until we take the styles off, because like the outline kind of makes it hard to position it. So let's do background color transparent. Let's get rid of that, and let's do border. I think none on this, right? So we're already getting there. Color primary. Whoops. Color is gonna be. So I'm doing this because I want to be able to change the color of the SVG dots. See, if I do light, it went away. It is coloring it. If I do medium, see it's back. Because the color, so like I think, let me go back here. So if you see how the stroke is equal to the current color. So the current color is, the color of the parent, right, button. So if I set that color to medium, it'll be that. If I change this to my favorite test thing is Firebrick, it'll be a Firebrick, right? Because it's inheriting the current color of the parent element. So go ahead and get saved there. So that's super nice. Let's see here. All right, we're good there. I'm gonna make this a square as well. Aspect ratio 1. All right, now let's try to position this thing. And I think this will be closer. Okay, so this leads me to believe that we need to, let's go card. And how wide is this thing? 449. Let's just do, let's do min width of calc. Let's just make it 450 to make it kind of easy with numbers to work with, times 1 rem, right? Let's go back here. So this looks much better, right? Because it'll never be like that skinny in real life, right? So this kind of makes it easy to line these things up and position it. So well, we're not done with this thing yet. Let's go ahead and add let me see here. Actually, no, I think we should go with this. I think we're done with that one. All right, it's pretty good. Let's style the card because the card needs some love. It looks like it's transparent. Let's go background color. It's going to be color. I call it base white. It's going to help quite a bit. I'm just going to make all of these. I'm going to give this a display of flex because I want this button here to be all the way to the right, and it's really easy to do a flex box. So I'm going to give this a display of flex and flex direction column. All right, so we see that's already taken effect there. What is the border radius on this thing? It's 54. I'm going to use that same trick I've used before. Border radius, calc, 54 divided by 16 times 1 rem. That should give us the nice border. And then what's the padding? Let's take care of that next. 50, 49, 50. So you can be safe and say it's 50, right? We'll do the same thing. 50 divided by 16 times 1 rem. Look at that. We're getting pretty close to design already with that little bit of change. Okay, let's go ahead and add the box shadow, which we put in a variable before we earlier here. Box shadow. Box shadow. Look at that, beautiful. Love to see it. Let's see here. What else? What else? What else? Let's actually add this thing here. We can see this little like decorative background thing here. Let's go ahead and add that right now while we're giving the card some love. Position relative. As a style. And let's just style this thing, right? So I'm gonna put this in a pseudo element just like we did for the checkboxes. It's gonna be a 4. Let's see. Again, like I said, you want to make sure you always give these things a content of something. This won't always be blank. Like this can actually be something, but like if it's going to be a decorative element, you want to give it the content equal to an empty string, just to give it some kind of. I don't know what it does in detail, but I do know if you don't have this, it won't work. It's almost like this allows you to paint to the canvas. It's kind of what it's like. So let me make this absolute. Position absolute. Display block, border radius gonna be the same thing. I'm just gonna take the same border radius and put it down there. The background color here. So this is gonna be interesting too. So I'm actually gonna make. So I do know that this is. I'm bringing the interface. It's like a 60% white. So I'm not gonna change base white. What I'm actually gonna do is do background color. I'm gonna do RGBA, and then 255. 255, which is white, and then if I can just do 0.6, right, which is should be that 60% opaque background there. Lastly, let's position this thing right. We -1 rem. We want it to be off center to the right there. Let's see here. We want this width to be 100% wide. Let's see here. Right. Top 0. Bottom 0. We want this thing to be positioned. This is actually, I'm just gonna do a height of like 95% maybe, because we can see it's not 100% wide here or 100% tall here. So let's do that, and then to kind of make it to be right in the middle, you can just gives things some margin, right? You can do auto left and right, and top and bottom should be 0, and that should vertically center that thing. Look at that. Okay. Last thing I want to do is, it looks like it's overlapping some stuff here. So I'm going to give this a Z index of negative 1 maybe. There we go. That's what I want. All right, perfect. All right, so I think, let's see here. One of the last things we have to do is, if you look at the design, we can see that these completed tasks are actually a bit lighter than the uncompleted tasks. What happened to my groceries header there? Okay, that's weird. I don't know where it went. There it is. Okay. Yeah, we can see that these are lighter. They're kind of more transparent than the other ones. So let's go ahead and style that up, and then let's style this add button here. So let's go ahead and do. So we have these in a class of card completed tasks. So these need to be styled differently. So I'm going to select that parent, card completed tasks. All right, let's select the labels in here and give them an opacity of, let's go 0.5 and see what that looks like. Okay, that's pretty nice because, again, like it's really hard to, like, I don't even know how to change the color of an SVG that's used as a background image. I don't know if there is a way, but I think in this case, making the label more transparent actually solves the problem, right? But just keep in mind that it's difficult to style those SVGs that are using background image. So something just to keep in mind. That's a challenge that I've not found an answer to yet. So also, let's update. That might be all we need to do for that. That looks pretty good actually, just by itself. All right, let's work on styling this more button. Oh, this card CTA. Sorry, card CTA. Let's give it a color of white, because we do know that the plus sign is actually a white plus sign, and the background color is going to be that dark. So let's go ahead and make that happen. So color, base white, background color, it's going to be the color dark. Okay, we're going to give that normal like button treatment. So border none, border none, border none. Let's look at, let's fix these. So again, I gave this, like, the card a class of, or display of flex. So let me go find it, because I want to make sure that, so if I check the DOM, that button should be a direct child of the card component. So if I go to, let me create some space in here, card, we can see that the button, the class of a card CTA, is a child. So this is a flex item. And what that means is we get the ability to change the sizing, or really like the placement of that item in the flex container, right? So if I do align self flex in, that should pop to the right, which is exactly what we want. All right, because we don't want this positioned absolutely, because we can see that it is in the flow of the document. It's not just floating off in space. So I didn't want to give this one position absolute. So that's the reason why that is done that way. While we're here, let's take a look at the border radius and the padding. So this is 17 pixels of border radius. And what's the padding? 26, 25 on the side, and then 10 and 9 on top and bottom. Let's just make it, let's see here. So let's fix the border radius first. So border radius is going to be calc. 1 rem. Let's see, what's that do? That's 17, right? I think 16 is pretty close for this. Let's see. Okay, that's fine. And then let's look at the padding here. So I'm going to do top and bottom first. Let's do calc. I'm doing the same thing I've been doing with this calc trick, 16 times 1 rem. And And then for the sides, let's try calc 25 divided by 16 times 1 rem. I think that's pretty good actually. Let's see here. So I did that because if I just copy this directly, I don't think it's taking into account the box of this. I don't think it's taking into account the size of the actual SVG icons. If I give this 44, that's changed. Like 44 is like the reason why we want to make this 44. By the way, so good job on her. Is that okay? So for now, I'm gonna change these to 44 because 44 is like the minimum you want for a touch target. So shout out to her for that. And most icons do come in like a 44 box anyways. So I'm gonna change this to 44, and then let me go and save this. I might look a little wonky. Oh, let me see inspect. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, it's because it's no longer in the center. Okay, it's interesting. So, all right, I'm gonna go back. And so the reason why I was changing numbers in the beginning is because like I feel like if I copy these styles exactly as they are in the design, it won't look like it does. Right? Let's try this out. So it's 26. There's a 26 on the sides, and then 10 on top and bottom. So let's see, top and bottom. If I make this 10 and then 20, it's a 25. I feel like it won't look the same, right? Like I thought, it looks a little bit different. I guess it's not too far off. But I'm gonna make this like 15. I think 15 looks more like the design than 10 does. So that's not exact. I think in a real world, you're gonna have like more exact measurements. But like in this case, I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it, even though the reason why is because this icon is not ours, right? By ours, I mean like a company's. I just found this to use it, so like the sizing is not exactly as it should be, based on the design. So it makes it really hard to get it exact using third-party icons. So just FYI, kind of a small caveat there. Okay. Let's see here. Is that it? So the one thing I want to add here though is something that we have not actually talked about, and something that we should talk about is this label. Like, what happens if I add like a bunch of text to it, right? So like, it's good to think about this kind of stuff. Like, how would you actually handle a bunch of text or a small amount of text in a real world example? So let me go ahead and add eggs and bacon and a whole bunch of other good stuff. Right, we can see how that kind of pushes the card to be much bigger than it needs to be. So if I made this card have, just for now, let me give this card actually a fixed width to kind of show you what would happen if I give this let's just make this width. We can see how some of these are not actually like lined up exactly, right? Which is not what we want. We want this to be lined up perfectly. It's actually not bad. I thought it'd be worse than that actually. I said not that bad. So for now, let's see. Yeah, let's keep it at width and not min width. And then the last thing I want to do actually is, let me go back to what we had before. See how it's not perfectly aligned there? I think what I actually want to do there is grab the check boxes and I want to move them up by a couple of pixels. So if I go to input, if I type in, let's just try tap -5 pixels. That's not right. I think 4 looks pretty good. Yeah, I think 4 looks really good. But let's put 4 on there. Top -4 pixels. And then again, let's try it with a bunch of text on here. Avocados and cactus peels and Krampus juice, whatever that is. Whoops, I click command S on accident. Okay. See, now the label doesn't look quite as good. Let me save this. Oh, because I didn't save, that's why. Because before it was still 0. Right, now I'll make this -4. Now it looks good. Perfect. This looks pretty good. So anyway, it's really important to keep in mind stuff like that, right? Even though the design doesn't have any, and to be fair, like most designs, so let me most designs that come from like more of like an amateur designer, they'll have like the best case scenario in their design, right? It'll be like lorem ipsum text that has just the same amount of paragraphs between different sections. But that's not how the real world works, right? If you're pulling data from like a dynamic source, like that data can be anything. So you gotta kind of try to solve for like the min and max amount of content for a given element, which can be hard to do. Um, it's not like required in this series, but I'm gonna bring this up because it's something that happens in the real world, right? So that's all. So let's go ahead and do a comparison of what we have to the design. I think it's pretty good. Like ours looks a bit bolder. Again, that could be. I say that actually quite often when you kind of go from Figma designs to using Google Fonts. I'm happy with this. Now, what I'm not gonna do in this video is hook this up with JavaScript to make it actually do stuff. If there's interest, I'll do it in a separate video. But I want this video to focus on just building out a static design in HTML and CSS. I said JavaScript, but I didn't need to use that for this video. But like in a perfect world, right? Like if you were to click this plus button here, something would happen. There'd be some kind of text input where you add in a new grocery item, and it should be put in this on this uncompleted or unbought list here automatically. And if you click the checkbox, this should just go to the completed and get the same gray styling, right? So that's pretty cool. All right, y'all. I think that's all. Thank you for watching. Stay to the end. I appreciate that. Please do your boy a favor and hit like and subscribe. You will see more from me. This is my first video ever and my first video in a series where I'm going to be doing this more often. So thank you. I appreciate it. Take it easy.